Halloween in December, a club build for the end of the year. Let's see what we're going to be doing next. Welcome back to the golf shop. Jim McCleary here, and we have a special build for a golfer in Maryland. And he is a member of my Golf Spy in their forum committee, and he's a really nice guy. And we did he's the one that set up my my Golf Spy trip and that I went to, and the guys were great. So he won a contest on shaft design, and as you can tell, it is from steel fiber. I don't know if we're going to get this thing to get in there or not. Steel fiber. Anyway, it's steel fiber, and it has a Halloween logos and emblems on it with bats and spider webs and pumpkin faces and crossbones and just a certain pattern right here. And then it's black and silver, and it goes into an orange. Very Halloween themed. Could be if you got a college that's orange and gray or a high school that's orange and gray. It could be very, very cool. Well, he also has a set of brand new Mizunos, right? Brand new Mizuno. They're the JPX 923 high launches, okay? The high launches. And so we're taking out some KBS. They're called Tour Lights. And the Tour Lights are around 95 grams and ish, right? And we're going to take those out, and we're going to put these in just because, well, he got these as he won the contest, so why not? Now, I will say, what's the difference here? The KBS lights are R-flexes. And KBS stuff tends to play a little bit more than advertised, okay? The R-flexes, even in the steel, will be in the upper end of the R-flex or even into the stiff. And that's just the design. It doesn't mean it's bad or anything like that. That's just the way it's designed because they like the butt flex to be a little bit more stiff. Okay, so steel fiber. Steel fibers have gotten a lot of recognition on tour, as a matter of fact, and they have multiple weights to talk to, up to 110 down into, I guess, the 70s, maybe even 60. Now, what happens here is that, specifically in steel fiber, the more weight that you add, the stiffer these clubs become. And 95 is right at the middle of the stiff range, if not getting a little bit more. Now, these guys have a different profile in them than the KBS Tour Lights in that it would be my opinion that the midsection is extraordinarily firm versus soft in the other ones. So this is going to have a different feel, even if it was the right flex. So it's going to feel a little bit more firm. Now, they came to me in discrete lengths. The funny part here is they all said 41 on the end, and they came to me in discrete lengths, which means somebody has trimmed them down, and I believe these actually may have come in a parallel tip, but now with this being a taper tip, they fit like a glove. I mean, they're really, really nice. Alrighty, so I've already taken them all apart, which was just heating and twisting and cleaning. That was no big deal. And then what I did is I tried to do a spine and a line on this one, right? A spine and flow, as case may be. And it's the last one of the year for doing something like this. And the spine and flow, okay, what we do is you put the shaft into a archaic thing like this, and you twist it and you find what would be called the hard side. Now, the hard side can be where the two pieces of the graphite meet, and if they're laid over on each other, shows a really good hard spine. If it doesn't, it's really hard to find, and that's just a sign of a good quality shaft. Sometimes you'll see that the labels are in line with it, sometimes they are not. That's just purely on the shaft maker's, preference. Then we put it in my frequency machine to do two things. I do it so I'm testing the frequency so I know what kind of flex we can expect out of these guys when we put them together, and to do flowing. Flowing is flatline oscillation. And that means that while using this head, not a weight like it would be something along this line, only smaller, we're using the actual geometry of the head to find the flow of this club. Now, what does flow do? Well, flow just makes it oscillates in a straight line with the thought process that when you go to swing, it bends down in the same category every time. Now, here's where things start getting kind of gooey. People will say, well, you need to be towards the target or you need to be away from the target. That's one philosophy. There's one that's at noon, right? You place it at noon and have the weak side at 6 o'clock. That's the one I prescribe to because that's just the one we started with and it seems to be working. The whole idea of getting kick, a little bit more, a little bit less, I'm sure that it does do something, but in every one of these cases it's minute. But there are some people that live and breathe playing with clubs that have been aligned. Okay. And there's a whole nother group of folks that could give a rat's backside. And that's okay too, right? It's all in preference. And I've seen where we've seen some testing out there and it's like, well, it's one pull and it goes into the same spot every time. I mean, it's a good test, but is it relative? Is it relative? Is it relative to the way that a person swings? I would have to guess no. But that's it. And again, purely preference. I still think to this day that I'm making a more consistent golf club in the way that it goes in this certain alignment to give you the proper, the way that, so all the clubs are going to act the same. Okay. That's just what it is. If it wasn't true and we didn't know all these different things, you could just stick and glue and move on and be grand. Right. And then it's just in who makes them look the prettiest. I don't think that's the case. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to do a club assembly and some of the things I run across in this particular set because there's some nuances here. So let's get to building. All right, so when you get ready to build, the very first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a good fit, right? You don't want it to hang up. That is an extraordinarily good fit. You don't want it hanging up here. You want to make sure that the shaft gets all the way into the bottom of the hosel. By not getting to the bottom of the hosel, you're not letting the shaft play and give it the stability that this club deserves. And that's the reason why you go in there. Now, there's been some folks in the day when we had bore throughs that we called it short shafting. And instead of having to deal with the bore through, that you would drill down to maybe just this far before the bore through, stop, and then insert the shaft. All right, now that was one way of accomplishing the task, but then the shaft wasn't working the way it was supposed to or was designed in the head. Now this guy is right there, and it fits very, very well. The other part is you want to make sure the inside of your hosel is extraordinarily clean. I do that with a wire brush. Now, a wire brush on the end of a drill, right? You get it in there, give it some high speed, and you're good to go. And you can look in there and make sure. Now, Mizuno has lots of little grooves in there in order to catch the epoxy so that it has more stuff to hold on to, which makes a better bond. That's a good idea. Now, the last bit of this, which causes club makers grief, are these little boogers. Those guys. Okay? These are ferrules from BB&F, all right? And they make a really good ferrule. The only problem I've come across with so far is that if you're using parallel tip, that these things are massively tight. Okay, they're massively tight. They take a lot of work. However, what we're running into here, it's the very same thing. When all these things say 41 inch on the end of it, that means these were parallel tips because they're all the same length. and what somebody's done is they've tapered them down. Okay, and we talk about tapering down. I've been asked this question. So if you see that and there's a lot of meat on the end of that, could you take off some of that end? The answer is yeah. Yeah, you could, because you're only taking off in this particular area. These guys have gone the extra distance, and it's a good looking It's a good looking fix. The only real issue now is right where it goes from graphite to paint. There's a shoulder there, all right? There's a shoulder there. And that's where that bad boy stops, all right? And so what does all that mean? Well, it means that this was originally a 370 tip shaft made into a 355 tip shaft, and now I have to contend with getting past the 355 point and get on 370 point. So how do we do it with this? There's the key, right? Well, there's two ways. There's two ways of making this happen. We're going to do one right here. One, that you can just simply drill it out. All right, just simply drill it out. Now we're going to change it here. Okay, so you get a clamp, you just put it in there, 3/8 inch drill, right? 3/8 inch drill, and you got to go slow. You go too fast, you can burn this thing up, pop off the rings, all kinds of stuff. So you just get it in there, be nice and parallel. You're looking to be in line with this. Use two hands. There you see it coming out. I see it going through the end. And luckily for me, this is a reverse drill. There we go. And then now what we've done is we've made the outside or the inside big enough to fit the outside of this guy. That's one way of doing it. Now I'll show you the other. Okay, so now we have the ones that I've drilled out, and I want to get this because the glue is starting to dry on me. We put a little bit of glue under the ferrule. Why? Because we don't want any slippage. Then I'm putting a tip weight in, and we're going to put a little glue on the tip weight and insert it into the shaft. So what happens here in a lot of tip weights is this piece here, the shaft can break off and it just becomes a rattle. And that's very unseemly and we don't like that. So we got it in there, we just need to push it down now. We're going to have to tap it. And you can see that I've gotten it through there, but is it the same? Is it the right distance? So we check it with just a real quick depth gauge, and I got to go about another 1/4 of an inch. So let's try and tap it some more. There, see if you heard that, it went down a little bit more, but now we're going to have to give it a little bit of help. Alrighty, and now we're going to move it. Hey, we're getting closer. Let's see again. Got to do a check. Yeah, now we're right there. We're very, very close. No, one more tap. There we go. Now we got her in there. A little bit of glue. Make sure it's spreading around. Do my alignment from my flowing. Tap to make sure it's seated. We got the extra we got to wipe off. And voila. Alrighty. Now, the golfer doesn't know I'm giving him a special ferrule, but I think it looks very, very cool from this. And if you're going to be a custom thing, be a custom all the way. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit different or addition of some glue. That one was starting to gel. I didn't like that. So just need enough for, I need more than that. All right, well, now you get to see me change out some glue. Done with that one. There we go. Now we're back in business. All right. important part here is to make sure that the glue has been thoroughly mixed, right? That's really what we're looking for. Now, we're talking about the second way of making these slide down. Well, you kind of saw me already do it, and you can do it without using the 3/8 inch drill, and that's the application of heat, and we'll show you. This is in a minor spot. So you see how I've stopped at the paint. I've been stopped at the paint because of the shoulder, so I got to push through it, which I just did. Alrighty. Well, I'm pretty close on that one. Let's check it out. Well, I'm right there. We're going to use this one. Alrighty, so we use the application of heat on the next one. Last two, and I got one more in here. We're going to put the tip, well, we're going to wait and put the ferrule on there. Then we put the tip pin in. That way you don't have to fight the ferrule over the tip pin. There we go. We're going to try and press it. Alright, so now we're officially stuck. Alright, and you see how not very much is there. The other way of doing this, if you don't drill it out, is the application of heat. Now this is plastic. The plastic really doesn't like heat. So you got to be fast, and you got to be all over the place. So only about 10 seconds. And just enough to get it warm, because it's going to move when it gets warm. We press down. There we go. Do our check to make sure it's in there all the way. And it is. And let's put some glue on it. Scrape the extra in there. Now you get a feeling when you're putting all this glue in here, as you're spinning around, you can actually feel it almost moving. And you're looking for a kind of a universal feel on it, that it's spinning around in there well. There you go. There we go. We got her. Now, what can happen? The problem with using heat, number one, is you can use too much heat and this ferrule will collapse on you. And that could be problematic, obviously. Makes the ferrule shorter, look way stupid, and it's really hard to pull it back out. So you've just lost the form of a ferrule. And we don't like that either. That's wasting money. Okay. However, small bursts of heat and then a real quick tap, and you can get away with stuff like that. I wouldn't try and pile drive it, but allow yourself the ability to push it down and in. All right. So we've got them all now where they're all gluing. Wipe that down one more time. There we go. Yep. They're all gluing, and then it's ferrule finishing. We did say it was assembly. There's the assembly. We'll do a few extra topics on this one, and then we'll show you the final result. So I got to clean up. Okay, we are on the home stretch to the custom Hallowmas clubs. I call them Hallowmas because these are Halloween shafts and we're doing them in Christmas time frame. The last bit's the grip, and I know I've gone over this several times if it's the end of the year, so we're going to do it one more time. So when we go to measure this, there is a line very much like this back here, and you can see it through the plastic is covering it. So I put the line at the very edge here, and I mark a line right there. That way I know I'm not going to have a piece of tape that's longer than the grip and it's sticking out, and that looks bad. All right, so what we do is we line it up so that we don't go above that line, make everything nice and smooth, and then either fold over or twist in order to get to the edge. Do that a couple more times. You see me always wiping the shaft, and that's just that's old experience from not I've always run into something like a piece of dirt or another piece of the ferrule or some like a glue booger or something along that lines, and if you don't find it and you put the grip on, there's this big knob underneath the grip and it's distracting. So I'm always wiping down the grip just to make sure that I'm not going to leave a big bump on the grip. All right, so what am I putting on today? The golfer had a choice between a couple of grips and chose the Golf Pride MCC4s. Okay, how about that? I didn't mark it and I still put it on there, didn't I? Was I good? Look at that. Okay, we went with the MCC4 Plus in the mid-size. This is what we call a half cord or multi-compound corded grip. So it's corded on the back, and it's a kind of a textured rubber, supposed to be slightly aggressive. It's not too bad, and it's a softer rubber than, say, the Tour Velvets, right, or something along that lines. And it very, very popular. Come in multiple colors, and anywhere from standard, actually some are in undersized, all the way up into the jumbo. Now what we're trying to do when we align this is that we're going to go with logo up. Some would prefer logo down. In this case it's up. And we're shooting this to be in the middle of the shaft, aimed at the bottom edge of the iron. I got asked that once. That's the reason why I'm telling you now. I tap it on the bottom, double check my alignment. There we go. And the last bit is clean it off so you get all the dirt from being around in the shop, that kind of thing. All right, we just work our way back. There we go. I use the Golfworks mechanical clamp or the speed clamp. It's 10 times faster than having to undo it in the vise and using a regular shaft clamp, which I've used for years. This thing saves tons of time. Now there is an air clamp out there that I think is very cool, but you have to be very careful when using thin-walled shafts because you run the chance of breaking them. Now if you don't work with that very much, then it's not that big of a problem, and it's a flick of the wrist and you're open and you're closed. So I wouldn't have too much of a difficulty using that. But this does the job. Besides the way I use it, it's not like I don't think it's a time saver per se. Now the last bit is, I don't fill it to the top, but I do give it about 2/3 full. I let it come out of the weep hole, and that way it's a lot easier than spraying it and basically dumping the grip solvent everywhere. And then I push from the back you see a lot of people grab it and try and slide it on. And although it's a method that works, I just don't. I believe, and it would be my opinion, that you run the risk of, when you push it on with just, or kind of pull it on, so to speak, that you run the risk of stretching the grip to a point where you'll undersize the grip. It won't be the standard size anymore. And so by pushing it, as we do here, all I'm doing is I get it started, and then I push it until I feel it seating. And then there you go. And I'm very confident that it is going to be the right size. All right. And that's putting on the grip. And we have gone through a 5 through a gap wedge on this particular set. I wasn't able to control flex because there was only, they already came pre-cut. So as soon as we get these on here, we'll do a spec sheet and a final view, and we'll tell you how this custom club turned out. I'm kind of happy with the clubs. There's one that's out of whack just a little bit, but they're a 1/2 inch over as required. I had some weight into them, and they're in that C9 to D0 range, which is pretty decent for what we've got going on in here because of using the mid-size grips. We can argue the swing weight thing about us all day, where, oh, you just add more weight in order to get the swing rate right. Yeah, but I'm adding more total weight, and that's not the point of this. The point of this is to have the proper weight with the right idea here in the idea of graphite to be shock absorbing, not to be a sledgehammer. Now, the other part of it is that as you get lighter, in a lot of cases, you might actually feel the head quicker. So it becomes a feel thing, and it can be kind of tricky. So I did add some weight with the idea of what I saw pulled out of the original set, and they were very close in the same weight, so I did that. The difference in the change was the original grips on here had, they were standard size, where these are mid, so these are significantly heavier, and that's what it's accounting for the change. But the feel should be the same. So that's the custom set, the Hollow Moss Christmas, the Halloween Christmas Golf Custom Set. Going to Maryland. And it was a neat build. I do think that they came out very, very nice. I do like the color scheme on them. I think they're very nice as well. I think everything just looks good. You should be proud of them that they're in the bag. Now, every Monday we have a live stream where we talk about this kind of stuff, 17:30, 5:30 Eastern. And it's PM Eastern, obviously, and it's on YouTube and Facebook. Join us there. It's a live version of the very thing that you're seeing here. It's from around the world. It's good stuff. And if you got any questions about club making, club building, put them in the show notes below, and we'll try and answer them as much as we possibly can. And as always, let's see your scores. Go low.